And welcome back to more Hollow Knight. This is going to be episode 10. We're getting underway. Last time we left off, we had explored the remainder of Queen's Gardens that we didn't get to the first time we were there. And we met the White Lady. Quite an interesting character, lots of theory crafting going on around her and her potential role in the story of Hallownest. We also discovered the hidden station, i.e. the hidden stag station, and realized that perhaps the last stag isn't the last stag, and he is now referred to as just an old stag. And of course, all of this coming after discovering the abyss, which we learned was our little guy's birthplace, and that we are a creation of void, among other things. And at the request of the White Lady, we also learned that it appears our grand purpose in this big epic story of Hallownest and the Hollow Knight is to replace the Hollow Knight and hopefully contain this, evil orange light infection that appears to be breaking loose from the Hollow Knight and spreading throughout Hallownest once again. Okay, as for now, we've made our way into this sub-area of the fungal wastes that's known as the fungal core, and accordingly there are lots of, mushrooms and shroomal ogres and warriors, etc. And what we're doing is making our way down. We're going to be going deeper than we've ever gone before, Devatron. And we're looking for the next area below fungal wastes.
No more shall.
All right, so we found the next area below the fungal wastes, and it's called Deepnest. And we already found Cornifer and got the map. And one of the few good things about Deepnest is that it's so scary that Cornifer is not even humming. So we can actually just open the map and look at it in relative silence. There's the little critters making their noise in the background, but at least we don't have his incessant humming to deal with. Now, as usual, I will do a proper map break later in the episode. I didn't feel like doing one there when we opened the map because there wasn't much to report on. So for now, let's just explore this new area. And the only other thing I'll add in is that we got a mask fragment when we first dropped down, which gave us 4 of 4. And accordingly, we got another life out of it. So we're up to 8 lives. You know, we're starting to be pretty badass here. Okay, so already several new little critters. These guys that just pop out of the dirt at you, they're called dirt carvers. And they're pretty nasty. Now the big centipedes that are kind of moving vertically and horizontally, you can't damage them, by the way. Those are called garpedes. And then the little spider that was crawling along the ceiling that spit at us, that was called a deep hunter. Okay, so setting a dream gate here and then getting ambushed for 2 damage by one of those dirt carvers. See what I mean? This is why I say they're pretty nasty. Yeah, as we explore this area, you're gonna see, if you can't tell already, it's very maze-like, okay? Very confusing, and lots of times you have to actually enter one screen and then re-enter the screen that you were already on because the way was blocked, and you have to navigate through all these garpedes and find the way. So it's definitely labyrinthine, and because of that, it's one of my least favorite zones. It's very easy to get lost, even if you've done it a lot. It's very confusing in here. And then to top it all off, as you're kind of trying to find your way and whatnot, all these bugs just pop out of the dirt and attack you. And as powerful as we are, those guys always seem to just get a hit on me. You know, it's just like, that's the way they're designed. They're going to take a life. So, you don't want to come down here before you have a lot of lives, because you're always going to be taking damage, even if you're good. And B, you don't really want to come down here before you have a pretty good nail. I mean, you could try to just spell your way through here, and it definitely comes in handy, like if you get jumped by several of them. But I'll just tell you, with an unupgraded nail, these dirt carvers take like, I don't know, 5 or 6 hits to get through. Even with our 3 of 4 upgrades, it still takes 2 to kill them with the nail. So this place is no joke, and the kind of frustrating part about the level design is that most people end up here really early in the game because you fall down from the fungal core, which you get to very quickly, right? We got to the fungal wastes, I think in episode 2. Or the other way is you fall down from the Mantis Village, okay? Which is also a part of, you know, the fungal wastes. And if you're not smart, or you just don't know what you're doing, it's very easy to just fall into Deepnest, and then you're stuck here and you can't climb back out, okay? So you just have to like tough it out until you find a stag station, you know? So it's particularly brutal and quite unforgiving, and because of that, I've put it off until much later in our playthrough. Okay, here we are. You could tell I knew there was a way to go right, but I was having trouble finding it. And here we have some mimics, which, with our upgraded nail, are much easier to deal with than the first time we ever, had to handle them. So 3 mimics and only 1 real grub. But that's what matters, is that we got the grub. And notice here we're going to use our dream gate to get back to this earlier part where we were and then take the path down. And there, you saw a spike trap get to me. It's another part of this area that makes it really difficult. It's dark, and even with the Lumafly lantern, you can't always see what you're about to run into until it's too late. So, again, just a very tough area and very unforgiving area. And as you can see from this very welcome hot spring and bench over to the right, Deepnest is not an area without its points of respite as well, although they're pretty few and far between. So because of this bench mostly, and also a way to go right, which we're going to put off until later, I go ahead and set our dream gate here. Essentially, we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff to the left and then dream gate back and then go to the right at the end of the episode. Now, the other thing you can see from this recharm is that we've got Shaman Stone, Fluke Nest, Spell Twister, right, Nailmaster's Glory. This is definitely a boss fight kind of setup, so sit tight. As you can probably guess, there's going to be a boss around the corner here. Okay, this is kind of weird. It looks like our little guy down there. I wonder if our little guy has some twins or some other siblings that actually, are alive like us. Okay, there he was again. Let's see if we can catch up to him and talk to him. Looks like he isn't here anymore. So maybe he wants us to follow him. Let's see if we can find him. Oh, he disappeared again, Devatron. What's going on? This is starting to get creepy. All right, I tried Dream Nail. That didn't do anything. It's like we keep seeing him, and then we go to where we saw him, and he's gone. So something's not right. Wow, close call, Devatron, and a creepy boss. My goodness, Nosk, the spider who can, mimic other creatures and beings and lure them into its web and, eat them, I guess. So here we go with our reward. We got some pale ore, which is great because now we just need 2 more and we can get the final upgrade on our nail. And as you can see, we're dream gating back to the bench. Now, we're not going right just yet. We still have a lot to do to the left, but going ahead and taking advantage of that nice dream gate placement to get back here. Now, I'm keeping Fluke Nest in, but I'm going with Compass and Gathering Swarm, our typical, adventuring charms, utility charms. As well as, Shaman Stone and Nailmaster's Glory. Now, the reason I'm doing Fluke Nest is because of some enemies that are coming up. Now, they're not bosses, but they're really hard. Think about in City of Tears, those big, heavy sentries. And notice when we fought them with the Fluke Nest charm, we were able to beat them in just 2 shots, you know what I mean? So it's something like that where there are some big tough enemies coming up, and if you try to beat them in traditional ways, it's going to take forever, or you're going to, die or take a lot of damage. But if you have Fluke Nest, you can just pop them with a couple hits and they're dead. And there, another new critter, quite dangerous. Not the big ones I was talking about, but those guys are called corpse creepers. And whenever you kill one of these husks or husk horn heads, see that? there's a chance that it'll reanimate into one of these spider-like enemies called corpse creepers. So be on the lookout with your eyes and ears. After we kill a husk or a husk hornhead, they'll kind of start to twitch and wiggle and make a little noise if they're going to animate into a corpse creeper. But they move pretty quick, and they can be tricky to deal with. As you saw, that one took us for 2 damage. Okay, so once again, it looks like Zote the Mighty has gotten himself into trouble, captured. And my guess is if we help him out of it, he's going to reproach us and then threaten us. So let's see if we can get over to him and get him out of those spider webs and see what he says. So true to form, Zote the Mighty, giving us a piece of his mind, Devatron. Can't believe we were swinging our rusty nail about in the darkness like that. Always fun to run into him and listen to his delusional self-approbation and, threats and all the rest. So, looks like there's a symbol for a bench up here. Let's find that and keep exploring this creepy area of Deepnest. Okay, so a new little sub-area, the failed tramway, and with it some new critters. Look at these big, creepy, flying, nasty bugs. These are gross. They're called carver hatchers. And if they had the time, which thankfully I'm not giving them, what they would do is hatch those dirt carver bugs. They just sort of spit them out endlessly. So they're very dangerous, and you definitely want to take care of them as quickly as possible. And along those lines, you're seeing just how good the Great Slash and Dash Slash can be. Now, again, a lot of that is due to the fact that we have an upgraded nail finally, right? And that's also why we didn't use these nail arts right away when we first got them. We also have Nail Master's Glory, so we can charge them up real fast. So a lot of reasons to go ahead and use them. And it's not that I'm giving up on the spell build or focusing on spells or anything like that. It's just that, as you can see in certain situations, it's better just to use a nail art and one-shot something really quick than to try to get fancy with a spell. Okay, so it looks like we found a tram pass. And that makes sense, given we're in the failed tramway. And this is kind of a graveyard with, a bunch of old broken down trams and whatnot. So perhaps in other parts of the world, there are working trams. And with this tram pass, which is just an inventory item, by the way, similar to, say, a platforming tool, it'll just stay in there forever. But yeah, perhaps with this tram pass, if we find a working tram, we'll be able to use it and travel throughout the world with them. So there is a Dream Warrior, and I'm going to challenge it, but I happen to know there are some more life seeds up here. So I'm going to go ahead and get them and increase my total bonus lives to 4. So we have a lot of lives going into this Dream Warrior fight. So a pretty damn tough Dream Warrior boss fight there. Galian, one of the harder Dream Warriors, at least for me. I've died to him plenty in the past. And one thing that really helped me not just get through it, as you saw, but get through it pretty quickly was using Abyss Shriek, the upward pointing spell. And that's not one I use a whole lot. First of all, there often aren't enemies above at just the right moment, Second of all, it came late in our playthrough. We didn't get it until much later than the other spells. And then also, it wasn't upgraded until just like last episode, So I tend to hesitate to go ahead and use Soul on a spell when it's not upgraded. So that's why I haven't really used that spell a whole lot. But as you saw there, it came in quite handy. That's a fight that you really want to try to get over as quickly as possible, because the longer it goes on, the more and more of those spinning scythes show up, and they'll all damage you, and it just makes it really hard to, move around and not get hit. All right, one shot with a fluke nest, Devatron. Those are the big nasties I was telling you about that we need the fluke nest for. They're called stalking devouts, and they're invulnerable to attacks from the front, with one exception. When they attack, they open up their mask and lash out at you. So if you're really good and really fast, you can time it just right so that when they open their mask, you hit them and then you dash away. But boy, is that hard. And if you're off, you're losing 2 lives, in one hit. So again, you see what I mean. Better to have the fluke nest and just take them out with one, hit the button once, tap, they're dead. And yet more spiders, Devatron. The little crawly guys that just kind of go back and forth, they're real simple. Those aren't bad. Those are called deeplings. But the medium-sized ones that just sort of appear out of nowhere and crawl at you through the air, those are called little weavers, and they can be tricky. Now notice we've entered a little sub-area here called the Weaver's Den, and when we dream-nailed that mask, it just said one word, hurrah, H-E-R-R-A-H. And Hurrah is the name of one of the 3 dreamers, the one who's located down here in Deepnest, and she's also referred to as Hurrah the Beast. So a hidden charm up here, Weaver's Song. And this is 2 notch cost, and it summons little spiders that follow you around. And yes, they will attack, but honestly, they don't do much damage. Similar to Grimm, it's more there for the novelty of having company or something like this, or the cuteness factor maybe. I've never found it to be that functional in combat or that effective. All right, what looks to be a pretty big whispering root. So while we jump around and gather that essence, I wanted to just say a little bit more about Hurrah the Beast. Obviously, we're working toward her, right, being down here in Deepnest, so I don't want to just start the discussion now. Let's wait and do the encounter, and then we'll talk more about her. But I just did want to point out that all these spiders, and those big giant enemies, the stalking devouts. Well, they're called devouts because they're followers of Hurrah the Beast. There's a certain sort of worshiping going on down here. And as far as the Weaver's Den and whatnot, all these spiders are kind of like Hurrah's brood, if you will. Now, is she a spider dreamer? I don't know. We don't know. Let's meet her and find out again. But just keep in mind, she kind of has this brood down here, and this is her domain. And at long last, there's the audible cue that we have completed the Whispering Route. And we can move on and explore more of Deepnest and hopefully find Hurrah the Beast. And treacherous as ever, this dangerous world of Deepnest. But here, another sub-area, the distant village. And notice that sign on the ledge pointed up and to the right. That's the sign for a stag station. So hopefully we can get up here, and there's still a working stag station, which will make it easier to get to and from Deepnest. Okay, so that's up and functional. We're not going to call the stag and leave just yet. We have to explore this distant village, which appears to be a collection of cocoon-like buildings, perhaps spun from spider silk, Devatron? Oh yeah, big time, Devatron. The Beast's Den. What is this place? It's kind of like the get captured and thrown in jail and have to break out motif. What is going on down here? Okay, watch here what I do with the dream nail. It's not that I'm interested in these little deeplings thoughts or anything. They're very basic. But watch my soul. I'm using the dream nail to fill my soul. See that? I hit 2 of them. It filled up both bonus reservoirs. And that's a trick that you're going to start seeing me do a lot more as we progress onward. Now, as we get up to Hurrah and enter her dream, what I want you to notice is the shape of her head, okay? Her body's going to appear unique, and she kind of has a cloak on and whatnot and a mask, but just notice the shape of her head and think about if that reminds you of anyone else that we've met so far. So, as for the shape of Hurrah's head, if you guess it reminded you of Hornet, then you got it right. And that's probably why she's waiting for us right here after we wake up from the dream.
La fenu venido. Hakana sagamos.
And with that, we now know that Hornet was indeed the gendered child of whom the White Lady spoke. And we also know that Hurrah the Beast was her mother, and the Worm, or perhaps in his Pale King transformation, was her father. So there's a lot to try to piece in here now that we know these things vis-a-vis, our theory, the story, etc. However, we're coming up on a bench, and once I rest on this bench, I open up the map, and there's a great shot of all of Deepnest. So I'm going to do a map break first, and then we'll deal with our newfound lore. Okay, so here we are in Deepnest. This is where we actually entered the zone. We had dropped down through the fungal core, having passed through the fungal wastes. Now, over here, this connects to Mantis Village, and up here, it connects to the part of the fungal wastes that meets up with the Queen's Gardens. But this upward pointing arrow is a little bit misleading because you can't actually climb up to the fungal wastes from Deepnest, neither here nor here. You can get to and from Mantis Village this way. At any rate, we started down here and we immediately found a mask fragment, which was great. And then somewhere right away over here, we found Cornifer and got the map. And then we basically just made our way up over here and we set our first dream gate there. And this looks like it's open, but it was blocked initially. And from here we went up and over and found this secret area. There were like 3 mimics, and we also rescued a grub. And then from there we gated back to our first dream gate location there. Okay, I'll clean this up. From that point, we had to go down because, again, this was blocked off until we got to it from this side. And we found this long descent down into the hot spring and the bench. And we set our dream gate right there, which is where it currently is. Now, it looks like it's here, but that's just a bug. For some reason, it pushes it up on the map, but it really is right here. And what we did after that is we recharmed, found this secret area, chased our little reflection around, which was really a mimic, luring us into the den of Nosk, the evil spider. And we killed it, got our reward over here, which was some pale ore, and then dream gated right back up here, okay? Cleaning that up. From that point on, we went left and up. Now, you could go this way, but it's better to go up this way because you get a grub. And then in this room, we found Zote the Mighty, who was, not having any trouble at all, according to him. But we had to kind of go up to this area and then back down and re-enter it this way in order to free Zote the Mighty. And then from there, we went up, found the bench, okay? After the bench, we went left over into this failed tramway area, got the tram pass, and then went back and down and over into this area where we got Galian, the dream warrior. Tough fight there. And then we went down and over this way. And just in case you're wondering, by skipping this little section of this room, it's no big deal. We didn't miss anything. So from there into this room, and this was that big room that had a lot going on. Like up in this corner was the Weaver Den. I think we rescued a grub somewhere up in here. We did the Whispering Root, which caused us to just, go back over everywhere in here and collect the essence. And that was pretty much it. From there, we headed over to the distant village where we are now. We unlocked the stag nest and did the beast den where we found Hurrah and did the dreamer. Okay, and then we're doing the map break in there. We're going to exit and then use our dream gate, which will get us back here. And then we're going to head this way for the rest of the episode. There's a section up here with some platforming that we need to do, and a section down here with some platforming that we need to do. But after those, we'll head right and wrap up the episode from there. Okay, notice there I tried to dream gate out of there, and again, but it doesn't let me do it. I think I actually have to be outside of the beast den and just in a neutral area within the greater Deepnest in order to use our dream gate, which I successfully do here. So getting back to Hurrah the Beast, when we were in her dream, her dialogue mentioned a bargain that she struck. Now this has to be the same bargain that the White Lady spoke of with regard to the Pale King and the gendered child. So my guess is that the Pale King entered into a bargain to sleep with Hurrah the Beast for the purpose of producing an offspring who would protect Hallownest. Now, when I say protect Hallownest, I don't mean single-handedly defend the city from invaders or anything like that. Rather, I think the idea for Hornet came along later, much later, when the city was already in peril and the Pale King and the Dreamers hatched their plan to use a pure vessel to contain the light, and the Dreamers would lock it away in the Temple of the Black Egg with their dreams. And with regard to that, I think Hornet's role as a protector of Hallownest is to evaluate those who come along and threaten the Temple of the Black Egg or threaten the Hollow Knight, or in our case, if it's a situation where the seal is starting to crack and the Hollow Knight is in trouble, to make sure that we're, made of the right stuff and we have what it takes in order to get past her twice, find all these ridiculous platforming tools and weapons and spells, claim the King's brand, enter the abyss, etc., etc., etc. She's sort of like the gatekeeper of the process for the one who's going to fix everything. Okay, real quick as an aside here, that's 3 of 3 on vessel fragments, and that gives us the third and final bonus soul reservoir. So our little guy is tip-top when it comes to maximum soul. So getting back to the Dreamers and the Hollow Knight and their plan, etc., if you recall last episode after we did Monomon, and we saw how Quarrel interacted with us and helped us, I posited that, hey, maybe each of the Dreamers has an external agent who has a role to play in their plan. And that role is happening now because of what's going on with the Hollow Knight. Accordingly, if I'm right about Hornet and her role, it would follow that she is indeed the agent of Hurrah the Beast, at least with regard to this contingency plan should anything go wrong with the Hollow Knight, which does appear to be the case. And it certainly also makes a lot of sense given how she's treated us and interacted with us in all the various trials and evaluations that she's put us through. Okay, so finding this corpse of a Garpede gives us a journal entry for the Garpede, which, like other enemies that you can't damage or kill, you wouldn't be able to get the journal entry for. So to wrap up Hurrah, why the bargain, right? This is how this all started. Why does it have to be an offspring of Hurrah and the Pale King? Why can't it be somebody else? Well, think about what has to be done, okay? Somebody needs to come along with a dream nail, enter Hurrah's dream, and then kill her, okay? If it's any one of her ordinary natural offspring, they're going to be much too protective and ferocious to allow that to happen. But if it's an offspring of Hurrah and the Pale King himself, who already has an affection for the Pale King as her father, but also a mind that can appreciate the Pale King's gift to this world, in addition to the ability to deliberate on these tough choices and see the greater good, and in the end make the right choice, that is the kind of offspring that will be able to do what needs to be done. Okay, and at the end of this long gauntlet of dashing puzzles, we have the Sharp Shadow, a hidden charm for 2 notches. Whenever you dash through an enemy with Shadow Dash, it will do damage to them. It's surprisingly good, and I wish I had more notch slots because you'd be surprised at how many times you actually end up dashing through an enemy. But it doesn't quite fit into my build, but I have used it, and, I do really kind of denigrate a lot of these charms along the way. So when one is good, even though I don't use it, I definitely want to point that out. Okay, we're coming up on an hour, and we're also coming up on the end of Deepnest, so this is a good spot to stop the episode. There's a lot to think about. We got our second Dreamer out of the way. Hope you're enjoying Hollow Knight. We'll see you in the next episode.